everybody for coming this morning. I will just kind of let you know I feel like absolute trash because of my allergies, so I may not be as excited today as I normally am. But we are going to go through the Smartlist training today. Angela, you can see my screen, right? Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I had you on mute.
So what the Smartlist is, just for everybody who knows and doesn't know, just kind of a real quick explanation of what it is. Smartlist is a flat file data dump of information that we need from the SQL tables. For instance, if you want to pull all your journal entries for, I know Kaiser sent out an email yesterday for an entire year, you can do it through Smartlist. If you want to do it for a month, if you want to pull all your sales transactions for the month, all your AP transactions, you can pull all this information out. Essentially, you're tying into the tables of SQL and just pulling information out. With that said, it's not something very easy to do if you don't know how to use it. You will get information that you're trying to tie, you're trying to pull your data and you're trying to tie it back to something, or you're trying to figure out if you've got the right information, and if you don't, it can be a bugger to figure out why you don't have that right information. So I'm sure that a few people know how to use it, but I'm sure many people don't use it to the full extent of what it could be used for. Hopefully today we will show you guys some stuff that will help you use it a lot. What I want to go in today is just a basic Smartlist functionality, and then I will touch base towards the end a little bit on Smartlist Builder and Excel Builder. Those are a little bit more advanced than reports that you custom build. I'm not going to lie, probably nobody's probably going to touch it except for a few people, because it is very difficult. You have to know the table structure, and you have to know what you're trying to get out of each table and how to do joins and stuff like that inside of it. So, but we will touch base on it because there may be something that you're doing manually every day that we could build in Smartlist Builder or Excel Builder that will help you guys, so that you just run one report every day instead of pulling three together and putting them in one. So to get the Smartlist, you go to Microsoft Dynamics GP and Smartlist. Oops, not reminders. Going slow. Okay. And as you guys can see, the Smartlist folders are set up very much like the modules in GP. So you have, field service, which is the contract module and things like that. You have financial use, and my internet's having issues now. Okay.
How does that every morning when I log on?
Somebody's logging on. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we can at least work with this. But you can see they're set up like the modules, where you've got the financial, the fixed asset, HR and inventory. We technically don't use too much. We use inventory, but not that much because most of our clients aren't inventory clients. If you wanted to look at, let's say, you're looking at one item and you wanted to see all the sales for that one item, you could pull it out of inventory, but you're probably not going to use inventory that much. Multi-entity is just, there's a couple reports in there that we use for 1099 stuff at the end of the year. There's really not that many reports out there. The big ones that we're going to be looking at is purchasing, sales, and financial. Fixed assets, I know we use at the year end. It's probably not the most ideal that we use for our balance sheet recs and stuff like that, but you can get fixed asset listings out of there if you need it. So what I'm going to do is just kind of go through the financial, the purchasing, and the sales and hit those really hard. If you guys have any questions, you guys know the drill. Just go ahead and interrupt and we'll go through them. A couple things I want to talk about real quick on the basics of Smartlist. any Smartlist that you pull into this field or into this window, you can download to Excel just by clicking on your Excel button up top. It can, if you have a lot of data, let's say you're talking 10,000 lines, 20,000 lines of data, it can take 30 minutes to an hour to download that data and get it to Excel because it's line by line pulling it in. So kind of think about that. If you think you're going to pull something out, it's a lot of data for like an entire year of journal entries, it might take you a good hour or two to download it and get it into Excel format. I don't think I've ever downloaded anything to Word, just so you guys know. You can do it, but I don't think you'll ever do it. Let me open up Smartlist real quick just so that we can. A couple other things that you guys will see on the top of the Smartlist window is the search, refresh, columns, and favorite buttons. I'm going to go through each one of them. The search is simply, it's searching and identifying your criteria in your Smartlist. If you want to search by date, if you want to search by any column that you have in your Smartlist, and it doesn't have to be in this Smartlist, it just has to be in the table. So let's say if I didn't have my account number in here and I just wanted account description, I could still search on the account number and it not pull into my data. However, I always pull that stuff in just so I know what I'm searching on to make sure it's working right. You can search up onto 4 criteria. You do have different items where you can do match all, match one or more, things like that, so that you guys, if you're searching maybe 3 different accounts, you can put 3 or 4 different accounts in here and change it from match all to match one or more. Then you would be able to search on those different accounts instead of pulling account 1, account 2, account 3 and combining them. The thing that you have to be careful of is if you do match one or more, there's possibility of pulling in more data than what you really want. So you have to really look at your data when you pull it. One of the big things that a lot of people don't do is that most defaults on maximum records is 1,000. When you pull a Smartlist, it will stop. It'll just pull the first 1,000 records that come in, and it'll just say completed, and you're like, oh, I got everything. Then you go to start time reports out or time something out, and it's completely way off. So kind of know what you're looking at. If you're looking at like a month, the sales transactions, you're probably not going over 1,000. But if you're looking at a year of sales transactions or a year of GL entries, you're going over 1,000, and you're not going to get all your journal entries that you need in in the 1,000 records. So that's pretty important to remember.
So you can change that?
You can change it to 500,000. You can, anything you want, you can change it to in there. Yeah.
Is there a way to change your default?
When you save a report, yes, you can save it, but it's only once you save it. Once on the asterisk ones, there's not. Inside the search account, this is where you also add columns to your report. So I don't really know of any way to tell you guys what's in each report right off. It's kind of, we'll go through some of the structure, but adding columns, you kind of just have to know what's in each column. So if I'm looking at the accounts that are in here, default is account number, description, type, account number, and account. One thing I may want to see is, let's just use example, whether it's set up as a debit or credit. Yeah. All I have to do is hit add, and then these are all the different columns that I can add to this report. So I can say, my typical balance, whether it's a debit or credit, I want to add that into here. I hit OK, and now it adds in here. I can also change, if you guys are going into a report and you're pulling the default report and it's coming through, and then you have to change kind of your columns up a little bit, you can change the columns right here just by picking, up and down where you want that one column to be in your report. That's pretty much most of the search. We'll get to the void stuff when we get down to the sales and purchasing ones. Those are, you can pull in voided transactions, so that's when we'll get to that. Yeah.
If you went back, it said match, search match or something.
Right here?
Yeah, search type. So you can, what's under that drop down?
Match one or more. So that's where you have, if you want, if I go in here and I say I just want account, my cash account, the segment 5 equals 1,000. It would only pull that. But let's say if I want 1,000, 1,005, and 1,015, I can put 3 different accounts in there, say match 1 or more, and it's going to pull all those 3 accounts in there.
I don't know, there's another place that that's what in a column, and they can change the name. Is there another place they can change it? That's just not know how to change it.
That's a very good point. So if you guys, this is the original name that's going to pull in from the table. If you guys want to go in, you can change the display column. So if you have a report that you're sending out to a client, they may not know, this, let's say this account doesn't make sense to them. So you say, you say natural account, or you say, you can change what the column headings are right here and then save that report so that you're not having to change a column heading every single time that you run a report and send it out. You just change it here, and then it's saved. Once you would save that report, which we'll go into that as well. But you can change names of columns right here, and then that way they're available for future use. You can also do order by. There's usually a default of the order where it's coming in. You can do it right here, or you can just do it once you ran your report. You can just click on the column headings and make it sort by the different column headings that you guys have up there already. So a couple things you can do inside the search. Refresh is just going to be if you guys are running data and maybe you change something. For instance, like let's say this AP manual. Let's say if, I don't want this as a credit, I really want it as a debit, using that as whatever. I know that's incorrect, but you can double-click on almost all Smartlist. Now, Smartlist builders, we have the capability to build in drill downs, but typically we don't, just because we build the report and then we just say, okay, go with it. But you can drill down to almost any Smartlist. So if I'm looking at this account, I can double-click on it, and it's going to go to that account. If I'm doing a sales transaction, when you pull that sales transaction, if it's not a Smartlist builder, you can double-click on it and go to the sales transaction. So almost all Smartlist you can drill down into whatever you're looking at. Let's say I then change this to a debit, hit save. I would now go in and refresh it, and it would show the changes. So not a huge deal on the refresh. The columns. You can also add columns right here if you don't want to, search by them. You can just go in and add them and then sort them the way you want them. Favorite. This is probably the biggest harp and the biggest frustration, and it makes me so mad when people do this, so I'm really going to pound on it. The default is to set a Smartlist to the system. If you guys go in and you create a Smartlist in one of these modular folders that is for a specific company, save it to the company, not the system. So if you go in here, you can save it visible to the system, the company, the user class, or the user ID. If you have a Smartlist that you don't want anybody to touch, meaning, hey, Rhonda, you've got an AP1 that you don't want, it's specifically for you, you don't want anybody else to see it or touch it, you save it to your user ID, and nobody else can see it. But if you have one that's just for the company, maybe one company they've got to see data this certain way, save it to the company. I don't know why, but it really bothers me when I'm going into all these different companies and I see Zach's distribution in a completely different company.
Well, system is across all of our databases,
yep.
And every user sees it. So if you change somebody else's, like Rhonda has certain ones for the check requirements that are for all companies, you change it to whatever, and you save it to system.
Rhonda gets mad.
Rhonda gets upset, and emails get flying around. But with that said, if you have a specific one that you want to look at, let's say, Michelle, you maybe look at your check register a little bit differently than everybody else. You can save one just for you. You can take hers, save it as Michelle's check register, save it just to the user ID, and only you will see it, and then nobody else can mess with it.
You see it in every company that you log in.
That's right. Yep.
What is it? I can't read. It's user ID, company, system.
System, company, user class, and user ID. User classes are, so we have set up user classes almost based on the different roles or the different job titles in GP, or in the company. So most of the time, user class is not going to be applicable because everybody is going to need the same data. You know, if it's saved to a company, everybody's going to need to see that company. If it's saved to a system and it is truly a system report, everybody needs to see it. So if you go in and you change it, and if it has the asterisk, it's not going to let you save it. You have to rename it. All I'm going to do is hit Add Favorite, and then it's going to be out there as whatever I want it to be. Now, let's say I go in, oh, I really need to change something else. I can just go here and then click Modify, and now it resaves it with the new settings. So that's, you know, if you guys are continuously changing columns, continuously changing the format of a smart list, save it, and then you don't have to go in and keep changing it. You can do things, let's say if you're doing journal entries. I think we have one out here that is monthly journal entry listing. Let's go to the third. You know, we can change this to the beginning of the period, the end of the period, and then it's going to pull based off your system date. If you're pulling, you know, this month's journal entries, things like that. This one, I don't really like this one in the sense that it doesn't have the beginning of previous period like you have in your trial balance report. But you can save, you know, different parameters so that you're not always having to go in and change dates, things like that. Account summary. This is a good one if you guys are looking at, you know, end of period balances and things like that. You do have, you know, you see it's based off year, the period number, your account. Then you do have debit and credit amounts. Then there's another column you could add that would be your period balance, which would be your ending balance for that period. Account transactions are going to be all basically your GL, every detail item that you want to look at. Accounts are going to be just all your cards of your chart of accounts in that company. I have not used, I believe these GLs are Smartlist builders.
Yeah, weren't those the ones, Rhonda, where it shows the like the description, and you can look. Oh, it has the AP reference, and it set them up for like hospitals and stuff. Yeah, it's got the go over. Yeah, it'll show you things.
So this one has a bunch, and this might be a smart list. I would like to clean up smart lists because I think there's a lot of smart list builder items out there that people have gone in and played with.
Click on the other one, the payable transaction. I think that's the check register with the detail of what the check was for, like who the check was for. Yeah, see, it tells you what, who it was.
Yeah.
Like who the vendor was.
Goes coding and stuff like that. One thing with the GL, the account transactions, you can pull in. So it pulls in your GL entries, you know, by series, by purchasing, financial, and sales. You can also add an originating master name and originating master ID, which would be your vendor name or your customer name or your customer ID. You can add all that stuff into the financial transaction smart list.
Could we get a list of those field names? Like
I know we have one that we got a long time ago that actually has kind of, it's more of the tables and what's in each table, like your primary table.
But I'm saying like I know that reference in, I mean, Soraya doesn't necessarily know if she goes into Smart that the reference field is the description field that AP uses.
Or originating master.
Is there anyone that wants to volunteer to put together? I mean, I don't think it's that many. I mean, there's probably 20.
Yeah, I can put that together because it's kind of different in each module. So purchasing might be a little bit different. The account, the transactions, the financial might be different. Yeah.
I mean, but I think a cheat sheet that everybody can stick up at their desk would be helpful.
Yeah.
Because the only way that I know them. It's just because
We play with them a
Yeah.
lot. That's exactly.
now. So
You sit there and you run a report and it doesn't work, and you go, damn it, and then you go back and figure it out. Yeah.
And I would never pick reference. Just
Yeah.
I mean, it's not intuitive.
And the date thing is, that's a
Yeah.
good point too, because you're, transaction date, that's right. Well, you really want to post the date, but you just call date. So,
Yep.
post the date, posting date.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
just look at dates.
Yeah.
There's like 42 dates.
And those are important.
I mean, I know like fixed assets, the YTD depreciation is accumulated depreciation, but
As silly as it sounds, I mean, a laminated card that everybody can stick up at their desk would probably be.
It might be easiest if Michael has a crack at it
Yeah.
and I'll see something out. Let me know what's missing.
That's right.
Please look at it and send it out otherwise.
a lot of it's trial and error too. Just
It really is.
I'll ask problems all the time, and then there's nothing in it. Well, that was one of them.
And you might say, and you'll think it intuitively, it's got to have something in it. And then you add that column and you go, that made no sense. There's nothing. It came out blank. So,
We did a lot of trial and error.
and I still do that. There's times, I mean, the posted versus posting date, one is the actual date it hit the GL. One is the actual date that the person hit click and posted. And I always have to talk to myself and go, okay, which one is it again? And
Which one do I care about? Because I posted it.
And usually I pull both of them in, and then I just pull the one that I want. So,
So when if you go into whatever you're trying to pull information from, be it a journal entry or whatever, the names in there are usually whatever you're looking at. So like if you pull up the dates, it'll say posting date. If that's the date you want, you can know that you can look for it somewhat that way. Like if you drop down in the GL, it says distribution reference, so you can kind of look, you can get an idea of what you're looking for if you go back to what you originally started with, and it'll help a little bit until we get down out.
So in financial, just kind of some of the things you can pull. You can pull the account summary for specific periods or months, and look at it almost as a profile. You do have to pay attention because it is broken down by year, period. It's not as simple as just saying, hey, I want this year, and then you kind of play with that a little bit. The account transactions is probably the most that people are going to use because you want to look at GL by, you want to look at it by income statement or balance sheet, or you want to look at all your GL transactions for the month or the year. You may want to look at one account. Let's say if, hey, I'm having a problem reconciling one account, or I want to figure out what's in prepaid. You could use this for that kind of information and just put in one account that you want to pull all the journal entries for that 1 month or year or something like that. The accounts, really I use those, I use them a lot during the year-end close. I know Lee uses them, Morgan uses them, because we're looking at those to see, make sure that all those accounts are set up with appropriate, whether they're balance sheet or income statement, so that it rolls correctly when we do the year-end close. With that said, you guys can also use that, if you're trying to learn the chart of accounts. I know there's, a lot of new faces. Hopefully most people do kind of have the chart of accounts down. Download some of that and start looking around because it's in order. You can get it in Excel. There's also the categories. Hopefully the categories are somewhat correct and intuitive in there. But, there's a lot of information in the GL. The bank transactions, we don't use the bank rec module in GP, so there's probably not going to be much in there you're going to get. These GL transactions, I think they're Smartlist, and I would 99.9% be sure that nobody uses them. One thing I am going to do is go in and clean up some of the Smartlists. I'm going to start removing them, and hopefully nobody uses them. If you guys do, I'm going to at least print out the sheets before I delete them, and then we can go back and build them if needed. But I think there's a lot out here that we played around with when we first knew Smartlist Builder that are kind of confusing. If I go up here to additional Smartlist, there's 3 different AP check requirements, AP check with distribution. I don't even know if they work or if they're correct. So we're going to start pulling some of that stuff out. Let's move on to purchasing. So there's a whole bunch in purchasing. Again, there is a lot of these payables apply with check with distributions. I think those were all playing around back in the day when we first knew it.
There's one that works.
Which one is it?
The one that says VA, because it was for Bring America. VA, check applied details. It's in one of those.
Oh, okay.
It's that fourth one. folder called earlier.
It's under purchasing,
Yep, and then what?
and it's
Payables, checks, supply, detail.
Yep.
And that gives you the check and then the actual invoices.
Gives you the check to the invoices.
And that's one of those that the column headings are apply to, apply from. I mean, it's real. Yeah, it's not an easy.
Yeah. So like a lot of these, I'll be deleting like this, check.
I think Chris on that CC one, I hope he said that word.
Yeah, I'm just like I said, I'm going to print off the information so that we can easily go back and rebuild it if somebody yells and screams. But I think it's confusing to everybody when there's 5 different ones with almost the same exact name, and you don't know which one works and which one doesn't.
I've been using one Beacon. I don't remember which one, but I can run the one I was using for one VA, let you know. Because we had to do some reconciliation between the regular check register and that one. It didn't tie up.
Oh.
That was like a little star.
Yeah, so if I go in, the primary one that we use for payables transactions is called payables transactions. So if we go in here, this little asterisk means that's just kind of the default basic report that is out there. And you'll see there's also some of the Smartlist will actually have an asterisk at the end of them. Those are canned reports that come out of the box from Microsoft. So if you have like this tax purchases by state, does not have an asterisk behind it. That means somebody has gone in, manipulated the columns or changed it, and then saved it out there. That's how you guys can tell if it's something that has been saved versus something that has not been saved. With that said, I'm glad you brought that up. The way you know if something is a Smartlist builder versus non-Smartlist builder is typically you would go in and you would only see one asterisk and you would see no reports with asterisks below it. That's how you can kind of tell if it's a Smartlist builder item or a regular, canned out of the box report.
And that's the one I use actually. Check register.
So we won't delete that one.
So we have to do more of this.
So I'll just start with an asterisk. Let's say if I'm looking at payables transactions for the month. If I come in here, my default columns are my voucher number, which is just the account number for GP, vendor ID, doc type, doc date, doc number, all this good stuff, right? Some of this stuff we may not even be using. IC, intercompany transactions. That's not going to pull anything in here. Facility ID, once we install multi-entity, they add this piece to it, so that's good. I can go in and change any of these columns. The one thing, and Tammy brought this up earlier, the one column that will get you every single time is voided. If you guys go in and you're pulling a transaction, a purchasing transaction, a sales transaction, Smartlist, always include this voided column because you will run it and you will go, okay, my GL says I have so much in revenue and my Smartlist says this and they don't tie. Why not? It might be because there's a voided one in there because when you're pulling that data, it just pulls all the data in and you've got to have a way to filter out whether it's voided or not voided. All it is a yes or no, so it's very easy. Same with like check register, if you're pulling the check register.
Alternatively, you can make sure that your search says voided not even.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, you can then filter off of it to say, I don't want voided ones.
Another way that we found is you've got the transaction amount and current transaction amount.
That's right.
If there's an amount in the current transaction, then more than likely it's a void.
On like check register, the one thing you got to watch with that is it really could be an open item, meaning it hasn't been paid.
Usually you can tell if it's an older one or something. Or
Yeah. So I can't harp that enough. Make sure you add voided to any purchasing and sales Smartlist. Like I said, I'm not going to go through all the different columns you can add because there are so many columns in each one of these fields and tables that we could spend all day just talking about each one. Another thing to kind of keep in mind when you're running a sales Smartlist is you have like document amount, and this is something that we'll go over with TJ. There's sales amount, document amount. There's a different couple of amounts in there that you would think would be correct. If you're pulling like a sales Smartlist, sales amount is just sales. It doesn't include if you have any freight or you have any a discount or you have tax included in it. So make sure you're pulling, I think it's document amount and not sales amount. That is a very important thing as well. Okay, let's see.
Well, one thing I learned when I was working on weekends, living Morgan, is that they do manual checks. Kathy was, if the check was written in April, but it didn't get cashed till July, we pulled from the bank statement all those manual checks that cleared. She was using an April date. So when you pull the check register for July, those checks can show up in there.
And that's the posted date versus the doc date.
I was pulling posting date, date, document date,
Yep.
and that's how I discovered it. It's, dates really mean something.
Yep, they are very important. Is there any questions on the payable side? I want to hit on the sales side as well. Any questions on the purchasing Smartlist real quick? Sales. All right, again, there's a ton of Smartlist out here. Some of them are Smartlist builders. A lot of them are straight out of the box. Kind of going back to was it last week we did this? 2 weeks ago? Whatever week it was. There's a difference between sales and receivables management. Sales is sales order processing, which is where you guys go in and you do most of your invoicing and you pull each item in. That's a sales item or a sales order processing. Receivables is cash receipts, is any debits or credit memos that you're doing in transaction entry, if there are any invoices. I hope nobody's doing invoices in receivables management, but there's a difference between the sales and the receivable side. With that said, everything in receivables management usually covers everything. But if you're if you're trying to get like line item detail for a sales and SOP item, you have to go in here to sales line items. This is going to pull stuff from your SOP. If you go in here and you're looking for cash receipt in sales items, it's not going to show up because there are no cash receipts in sales items. Cash receipts, debit memos, credit memos, things like that are up here in the receivables transactions. This one real quick. And then you'll see a document type as sales invoices or payments or debit memo, credit memo, things like that. So if you're in the sales trying to run, and you may be missing a debit memo that was done in receivables, you're probably going to want to go in and run the receivables transactions. Same kind of thing. You guys it's got the canned report. A lot of times, these canned reports can be pretty good because you have like this month's sales. They're already set up. If you guys are, step back real quick. If you guys are running a report, the criteria that you're searching on is also at this bottom part right here. So it says first 1,000 records where document type is equal to sales/invoices and document date is between 2/1/2012 and it's going to be 2/29 because it's set up as beginning of month and end of month. Where that month is coming from is my system date down here. So if I change this to 01/31/12,
What did you just do?
I changed my system date.
What is that?
This date down here at the bottom,
Yep.
that's my system date.
What does that mean?
Remember how we talked about during the trainings, if you're posting like to January and you're in February, you can go and change this date and it defaults all your dates in your forms.
For that day.
That's, yeah. So that's what's called my system date. Then now I come in here and if I hit refresh, this should now say 1/1, which it is. It says 1/1/2012 to 1/31/2012. So let me refresh it. So now I'm pulling in January stuff. There's nothing out there. Same thing. You have today's sales. You can look at unapplied documents. There's all kind of things. Some of these we've already created, like credit memos, right here. This one, DA customer payments. I don't know who saved it. Not blaming anybody, but I should not see that in a different company. That I should only see in Doctor's Access. So we would go back. What I would do, just the way to correct that, guys, is log into that company, then go in and do a favorites and change it from system to the company, and then it'll remove it from every other company very easily.
And then somebody will say, wait, where's that DA thing?
Yeah, exactly. Because honestly, somebody could be using the DA customer payments in another database.
It'll pull up the right database. It's just the wrong name.
That's right. Correct.
Then change it to just
I was
customer
going to say, can you
payment.
just change the name?
You could.
Michael, but then does that one stay out?
No, I don't care if people change names, but all I will say is you risk somebody yelling at you or everybody yelling at you. So you have to kind of beware of what your changes. You guys can do what you want. It doesn't affect me. It affects everybody else. But like I said, that there is a difference between receivables and sales. There is also a difference between kind of a header summary record and a detail record. Meaning, if I go into sales transactions and I'm looking at, if I'm going into sales transactions, that's kind of the summary of each transaction. So you're going to get the customer, you're going to get the total document amount, you're going to get, kind of the stuff that's on the top and the summary of that transaction. I'm not going to be able to pull line item details, meaning I want to see every line item for an invoice in the sales transaction. If I want to see every line item, I have to go in here to sales line item, which then gives me, where are you? There should be a column that has item number. In there. But what you would do is you could see if these items had multiple sales transactions. That's why. So see, you could have one invoice in here 3 times because these were different lines on that one invoice. So that's the difference between kind of a header record and a detail record when you're talking about GP. Let's see. What else? Any questions on the sales receivables kind of stuff? Tina.
Can you put the payment in the FOB?
Receivables. Because technically that does create a cash receipt. If you go and look at that vendor, you would have a sales invoice and also a payment. It technically does create a cash receipt. It just hits debit and credit, the correct accounts. But I would pull that from receivables because you're not going to see any cash receipts in. Now you could see
Paid or not paid.
You could see a cash I think you can pull in columns that says like cash, check, things like that because you're putting that in there and it would show an amount, but you wouldn't see like the actual cash receipt associated with it.
Hey, Michael, I was going to ask if you could explain to them the year-to-date thing on some of the purchasing reports.
Very good point. So if I come in here and I'm looking at, I'm just going to use vendors because I know it's in here. Discount, vendors. Let's just pull this one. Okay. So if I go and look at this vendor,
I just kind of know what he's
and it says amount billed year to date and amount paid year to date, I'm going to tell you guys right now that is not correct. And the reason that is not correct is because in GP, and it is, I believe it is a system flaw. It is what it is. You have to close it that year to date and paid and billed, anything like that in purchasing. If it is a summary type record, it has to be pulled. You essentially have to close the purchasing module on December 31st, and you have to totally segregate all of your December transactions from all of your January transactions. With that said, we don't close payables management for the most part. I do have some views that I can build that you can pull that information. You can pull it year-to-date information. You can even pull it by year in column format. So if you were to look at, somebody needs, hey, I need 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, you can pull that kind of stuff. So for purchasing and sales, if you're looking at this amount billed year to date and amount paid year to date, it's probably not correct. It's probably from whatever the last date is that we closed purchasing, if we've ever closed purchasing for that company.
The same true on the check register, they call them on it. You're magically with it.
The check register is based on checks.
I don't know right off. I'd have to look at it and see. What it says, checks paid year to date?
That would be.
I would think that would be by doc date, but I don't know. But it could be this amount paid year to date as well for that vendor. So we kind of have to.
Well, the check register, I don't know which one they equal to in the payable transaction.
Well, we can look at that. But yeah, the reason that we don't close is because you have to cut it off right at that exact date to get it to work right. It's not based on doc date or posting date, things like that. In GPs, the manuals and stuff, they say, put in all your December transactions, then close purchasing once everything's in for December. Then you can start putting in January transactions. Nobody does that. I will tell you this. Did you really? How did you pay rent? How did you pay rent? Yeah,
Prepaid. I think we hired a lot of those.
Wow.
Yeah, full prepaid.
But we can build views that will work so that you can pull that information correctly. I've got them. I just have not put them in. So very good point on that.
I don't know that anyone else would ever need to use that, but we found that. And so
Yeah.
we don't work around.
Well, it's a good thing to bring up because if somebody does think that it's correct,
Like going to get a vendor a year to
Yeah.
pay.
yeah.
That's,
Yep. So real quick, we've got
Are you better off pulling the check register?
for the
A
most
vendor.
part, yeah, looking at the vendor. With that said, we got about 10 minutes left. Smartlist Builder and Excel Builder. Those are two. They're kind of custom reporting and custom smart lists that we can build. The difference, Smartlist Builder is we're building. We may take a purchasing table and link it to a general ledger table to get that distribution that we were talking about and things that we're pulling. We can, I've used similar things for the contract module. Some successful project accounting. We're linking tables that you guys normally don't see to create these smart lists. My goal is, if it is company specific, meaning like this one for THCC, I will go in and put that company in there. So if you guys see under Smart List or Additional Smart List a company name, that would most likely be a Smart List Builder item that somebody created, and I'll put those up in those two places. If it's under purchasing or sales, it's associated with a purchasing item or a sales item across the board. What? Smart List contains an object that does not exist in this database.
Sometimes when you open Smartlist, it says something like update or something needs to be run and changed.
Smart List Builder.
That means somebody's gone into Smart List Builder and changed something and then not gone back into Smart List and opened it. If you open that, just hit yes and refresh, because all you're doing is refreshing the lists that are showing up. That's okay. If you ever get this error, this Smart List contains an object that does not exist in this database, that is because we go in on the back end and create SQL views that then we publish through Smart List, and then we only publish it to that company. So I can only run this THCC CME tracking in the health caring clinic or company, whatever it's called. For instance, I know that one of the Smart Lists is the check register to distribution or check register to invoice. Doesn't matter what company you go into, it pulls Bella. The reason is because when that was set up, it is a view off of Bella's company database, and then there's an option to check it, only use this company. Well, that's what we need to go in and check.
That's what Dawn and I were doing, the one we were doing.
Yeah, it's a
And that's why you are running these for a client. I mean, everybody needs to really look at it.
and verify somehow.
Before you just run it and send it to a client, because, I mean, you don't want to be sending boutique Bella to somebody. I mean, that's kind of not a good thing. So.
And on our side, there are some cleanup stuff that we've got to do because, that Bella one, I don't think anybody's using it because everybody knows it's Bella, but we really need to go in on the Smartlist Builder and make it, this is only used for Bella, or just delete it because it's not going to be used. So Smartlist Builder is, we're combining, like I said earlier, if you're taking, 2 or 3 smart lists and you're running 3 of them and then you're combining them in Excel manually, kind of bring those kind of things up to somebody because we can probably build it in a smart list so that you just run it every month or every week, however you guys are running it. Smart list is good for, I think Kaiser sent out that email yesterday. Smart list is good if you're talking, 1,000 lines or you may be talking a couple hundred lines, things like that. If you're talking thousands and thousands of lines, like a full GL for an entire year, Excel Builder is the place to go. What Excel Builder is, it's very similar to Smartlist Builder, except, and I don't think anybody does anybody know where Excel Builder reports are besides Morgan and Kaiser? Do you even know where they're at? So I can come around and show everybody, but basically if you come out to your computer and you go to My Network Places, everybody should see a folder called GP Data on S-DB01. You click on that, you should see a new folder called Excel Reports. Right-click on that and make it a shortcut and send it to your desktop. So now when I come over here, I've got my Excel Report shortcut. Click on that. It should have all the companies. I think we are missing some of the newer ones, so we can deploy. I'll deploy that. But basically, if you come out here, all these companies have what are called Excel reports. We'll look at this one since we're looking at Zach. Kind of set up as the same module structure of financial, field service, almost the exact same as what your smart lists are. Now, if you make
GP Data Excel report.
That's not going to go any bigger. I'll send out instructions through an email as well. And then you kind of have very similar items out here. So let's say if I'm going to financial. And I've got, this is kind of broken down just because of the table structure. You have account transactions, current financials journal, current inventory journal, payroll, purchasing, sales, things like that. So let's say if I want to go look at all my GL entries that I've made through the general ledger transaction entry, I would click on this current financials. You're going to open it up, and it's just going to open up, and you're like, nothing's pulling. Go to options and enable this content. Take a quick second. You can see it's connecting to the data source. Tape Online is going to have a lot.
Which one are you?
But if you did this in Smartlist,
if you did this in Smartlist, so yeah, I did Tape Online, and it'll probably take a minute or two. I'm not going to lie, it's still going to take a while because they have a lot of transactions. But if you were to pull this same data out of Smartlist, it could. When I did Doctor's Access, there it is. So this goes all the way back to 2010, and it should pull all the way to 2012. So I just pulled 8,000 lines in about a minute. If I were to pull 10, when I did Doctor's Access, I did 3 years, and it was like 45,000 lines. It took me 2.5 hours to pull out a Smartlist, and that's because I didn't want to. I ran it while I was leaving.
Smartlist, but then when you export it to Excel, it's like
it can still take a long time to pull in Smartlist too. And I would say the only reason.
Forget that you haven't changed your 1,000, and you're like, oh.
Yeah. I would say the only reason I did it that way in Doctor's Access is because I kicked it off and then I left for a little while because I was running an errand. So it was very easy for me to do it, and I just, okay, whatever.
Does that slow the database down for everybody if you're doing a giant smart list like that?
It might slow the app server down, but not the actual data.
So this is a better way, given that until the new stuff is done on the managed services side, that it might be very helpful to do it here and not slow the app server down.
But yeah.
Really awesome and fun when the app server.
So these reports are already done. You can't add columns here. You can't change anything. You just go and look at the.
Not to this. You can add like calculated columns, but we can go in. We have an Excel builder that we can go in and build other types of columns. Like for Med Center, I went in and built a view in SQL, and then I published it to Excel reports, which now Dusty can pull. He can tie out deferred revenue. He can pull screen reports. He can pull a lot of stuff out of there. They've got 2,000 to 3,000 contracts. He can go pull it like that instead of pulling it through Smartlist every time.
And that list of what the different reports are in the folder, is that pretty self-explanatory? Do we need
Yes and no. Like I said, so this is all financial transactions that were done through the GL entry. This would be all of your transactions that were done through the purchasing module. So anything that was coded into AP or any checks, things like that. You kind of have to know, I think we talked about this in the other meetings, you have kind of 3 different types of tables. You have a work table, which is items that are not posted, they're saved. You have an open table, which is items that are posted in the current year. Now, the one difference is, purchasing, everything once it gets paid, it goes to history automatically. And then you have the history, which is when you close the GL, everything for that year goes to history, and then the new year is considered the open year. And that's why for Tape Online, is that right, Morgan? Have we not closed 2010 for Tape Online?
We tried to, and then I was doing something else at the same time, and it didn't close properly.
Okay, so that's why I'm getting 2010, 11, and 12 in this one report. Is all 3 of those years are open right now. Once we close 2010, you won't get all of 2010.
Am I getting confused? Aren't those Excel reports that's part of the manipulate? You have to copy them into another Excel?
That's correct. Yeah, like you can't filter. If I come in here, yeah, true. It doesn't let you sort. You can filter. You can still filter and things like that. You can't sort. So if I come in here, right? No, they did. I wonder if it's Excel builder items that you can't do that with.
I still always copy it all and paste it special as values in a new sheet.
Yep. Let's say.
Manipulate, and I didn't have to worry about messing with the.
Well, then you can go back and you still have your original.
Because you got to save it as something else anyhow.
Yeah. So let's say if I wanted to just look at 2011 items for Tape Online. Go here. I'm filtering just 2011. Hit copy. I'm going to open a new workbook. And then I'm just going to do paste special values. So now I've got it all right here for just 2011.
One thing that's funky though, is I can't see that far. Is there actual dates in there, not just years?
Yeah, right here.
They don't treat it as a date field for some reason.
Yeah, so when you.
So if you were to sort that, it wouldn't sort. It would.
Well, then you come in here to home and change it to short date. And then it changes the way you want it. I think everybody knows that's just a general Excel rule. If you have a date transaction and it's like 40544, what Excel does is it stores date as an actual digit, and then it converts it to a date when it's formatted as a date.
Like turn the filter on real quick. Let's see if it'll let you after you did that. Will it let will it roll them up?
It will, because since I changed it to a date. You're looking at Excel builders. That's probably why. In Excel Builder, that column is probably not set up as a date in your Excel Builder report.
Yeah, I mean, it's a date field in a GL in Great Plains.
But in the Excel Builder, I'll show you.
Okay.
I'll show you. Katie, to your point, you can't go in and just simply add a column here. We have to go in and kind of build it on the Excel report side. But if you can get a report that you're pulling a lot of data, this is the place to do it.
The one that I sent out the email about It doesn't matter if it's work, history, open, purchasing, financial, whatever. It's going to pull all the general ledger. So I can do that one. It's really quick. It does. It'll give you a series though, and so you can tell where it came from. I put that column in there.
Before you start building a ton of Excel reports, we can probably build one view, paste it into every company. So, yeah. So any questions on Smartlist, Smartlist Builder, or Excel Builder? Anybody think this is going to be useful?
I didn't know this existed, so that's very...
Speaking of trainings that are going to be useful, I just wanted to let everybody know, when they offer these Excel trainings coming up, you probably want to go, because I know the last one was labeled beginners, so virtually nobody came, but there may be 5 or 6 of us in the room, and probably combined 50-plus years of Excel experience with people that were in the room, and I think everybody learned something that day. I know I did. I know Shannon did.
Well, in the second one, if you weren't in the second one, we didn't do really much of anything, but we spent our time helping vendors come up with topics that we could use for future Excel training.
So what we're going to do is we're going to come out with a list. I think we've got like a list of 20 or so topics, 20 to 30 topics that people wanted to know about, and they're basically all intermediate and advanced topics. So we're going to take 5 to 6 at a time. We're going to come out with the next training sessions on those. It's going to be an hour long, and then we're just going to kind of run through the different topics. But yeah, like TJ was saying, you know, like data validation. You know, Shannon didn't know that, and I didn't either. But she said that that would have been extremely helpful. So I mean, sometimes you know you might hear something you already know, but sometimes you get something different that saves you time out of it.
Just wanted to encourage everybody to attend that.
Yeah, well, I did go, but I got chased out of there because he goes to look at beginners. So.
Yeah, that was in the beginning. We were trying to figure out.
Yeah, so I told others not to go. So.
And then the second one was full, and we didn't do anything but talk about the more advanced topics we needed to go on. It wasn't very well.
Well, and you know, something like that, all of us being accountants, most of us use Excel a lot. You know, there's a lot of departments that probably don't use it as much, but I will tell you this, everybody probably uses it a little bit differently, and everybody uses it just to get the stuff they need to get done. I guarantee you, even in a beginning class, you can take something out of it that you will go, I didn't know it, and it'll make it easier to, even if it's one thing, you will take it out of it, and it'll make it easier when you're doing one thing next time. I'm going to send it out.
Okay. Thank you, Mikey.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Very good.
Hi, Wendy.